Welcome to our deep dive into the life of Swami Vivekananda. As you all know, he's this world-renowned spiritual figure, but today we're going way back, before all of that, before the fame, to explore his intense training under his guru, Sri Ramakrishna.
Yeah. It's amazing to think about how this relationship wasn't just about shaping one man's destiny. It really, it ultimately gave rise to someone who bridged Eastern and Western thought and really left a lasting impact on the world.
It really does make you think about the power of mentorship, right?
Absolutely.
So let's rewind back to the very first meeting between Vivekananda, then known as Narendranath, and Sri Ramakrishna.
Yeah, from the moment they met, Ramakrishna saw Narendranath's potential. And what's remarkable is that, he tailored his approach for each student. He really encouraged independent thinking. It wasn't like a one-size-fits-all kind of teaching.
Oh, wow. So that's so different from what we imagine about traditional guru-disciple relationships.
Yeah.
So was Narendranath immediately on board with Ramakrishna's teachings?
Not at all, actually. He initially mocked Ramakrishna's concept of non-dualism. He just couldn't grasp the idea of everything being God. There's this amusing anecdote where Narendranath is joking with a friend and he says something like, imagine this jug is God, this cup is God, how ridiculous.
So don't tell me Ramakrishna overheard that.
He did. He walked in right at that moment, but instead of scolding Narendranath, he simply touched him gently and entered into this deep meditative state.
Wow. And what happened to Narendranath?
That touch triggered a profound shift in his perception. He suddenly experienced the universe permeated by the divine, everything interconnected. It was a fleeting but powerful glimpse into the reality that Ramakrishna embodied.
Whoa, that's an incredible way to teach. Instead of arguing, he creates an experience.
Exactly. It speaks volumes about his unconventional but deeply effective teaching style. Rather than forcing beliefs, he sparked these profound shifts in understanding.
So we have Narendranath, this brilliant young man already deeply influenced by Western philosophy. The biography mentions his fascination with figures like Wordsworth, Shelley, John Stuart Mill, even Hume.
Right.
What kind of internal conflict did that create for him?
Yeah, it fueled this constant tension between reason and faith he was grappling with. These age-old questions, the problem of evil in a world created by a benevolent God, the limitations of human understanding. These were common struggles during that era as Western ideas, began to challenge traditional beliefs.
Yeah, it makes me think about the internal battles we all face when trying to reconcile different ways of seeing the world. The biography also highlights music as a source of solace for Narendranath during this period.
Yes, it seems that music provided an emotional outlet, a way to connect with something beyond the intellectual debates that were consuming him.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about the role of art in our lives, especially when faced with such complex questions. It seems like all these philosophical debates weren't giving Narendranath the answers he was truly searching for.
He needed more than theories. He craved a personal connection. A guide who had actually experienced the spiritual truths he was wrestling with.
And that's where Ramakrishna, who had already walked that path, became so crucial. Right? He wasn't just offering concepts, he radiated this tangible peace.
Exactly. This need for a living guru, someone who embodies the teachings, is a common thread in many spiritual traditions. But even with this strong connection, their relationship wasn't without its tests. Ramakrishna, for example, would often put Narendranath's commitment to the test.
Oh, like that story about the hidden coin?
Yes. Ramakrishna claimed that his spiritual experiences had made him incredibly sensitive to metal. So Narendranath, always the skeptic, decided to see if that was really true. So while Ramakrishna was away, he hid a coin under his bed.
Oh, I can already see this backfiring.
When Ramakrishna sat on the bed, he immediately reacted as if in pain they found the coin, which revealed a couple of things. Firstly, confirmed the depth of Ramakrishna's transformation. But perhaps more importantly, it showcased his compassion. He didn't scold Narendranath, he simply acknowledged the discomfort.
That's remarkable. He didn't feel the need to assert his authority or prove himself right.
And Ramakrishna tested Narendranath in return for a whole month. He completely ignored Narendranath, no greetings, no acknowledgement. Can you imagine the willpower that must have taken?
It sounds almost cruel. How did Narendranath react?
He kept coming back. He would say to Ramakrishna, I love you and I want to see you. I'm not here for your words. It's a powerful testament to their bond, wouldn't you say?
It really shows that Narendranath's commitment went beyond superficial interactions. He wasn't there for the show. He was there for the connection.
Ramakrishna was overjoyed. This confirmed that Narendranath's devotion was genuine, but just as the spiritual connection was solidifying, a tragedy struck Narendranath's family.
His father died unexpectedly, is that right?
Yes. Leaving the family in dire financial straits, they faced immense hardship with creditors constantly hounding them, and even a lawsuit from relatives. It was a truly dark period.
I can only imagine the emotional toll that must have taken on Narendranath on top of everything else he was going through.
He desperately tried to find work to support his family, even refusing meals from friends so his family could eat more. He was presented with temptations, offers from friends involved in dishonest dealings, and even an indecent proposal from a wealthy woman.
Wow, it's amazing that he resisted those temptations, but facing such poverty, did his faith ever waver?
It was severely tested, especially when his own mother challenged him, saying, "Hush, you fool, you've been praying to God since childhood. Tell me, what has he done for you?"
That's heartbreaking to hear that from your own mother.
The weight of their suffering, coupled with his mother's pain, fueled his doubts. He began questioning God's existence, the point of prayer, even arguing for atheism.
It sounds like a complete crisis of faith. So did he abandon his spiritual path?
Despite his outward rebellion, the biography tells us he couldn't truly shake his belief. He still yearned to understand God, to find meaning in the suffering. And then one day, after an exhausting day searching for work in the pouring rain, he had a profound vision.
Tell me more about this vision.
Exhausted and disillusioned, he collapsed on a porch, seeking shelter that night. He experienced a series of intense inner revelations, veil after veil lifting from his soul. He never fully revealed what he saw or understood during this vision, but it reconciled for him the existence of suffering with a compassionate God.
So he emerged from this experience transformed.
Completely, he returned home at peace with a renewed sense of purpose. This pivotal moment marked a turning point in his life. He realized that he wasn't meant for an ordinary life. He felt the call to a higher purpose, the pull toward renunciation.
What an incredible journey he'd already been through. And it seems this experience solidified his commitment to a spiritual path, right?
Absolutely. It was at this point that he decided to embrace a monastic life and share his decision with Ramakrishna. Can you imagine the courage it took to walk away from everything familiar?
Must have been a huge decision. So how did Ramakrishna react?
He asked Narendranath to stay in the world a while longer, at least for as long as he lived. It was a touching request, almost like a father asking his son to stay by his side during his final days. Ramakrishna knew the path Narendranath was destined for, but he also saw the value of his presence.
That's incredibly poignant. It speaks volumes about their bond. But Narendranath was still facing such intense poverty. Did that ever cause conflict between them?
It did raise some questions for Narendranath. He wondered why Ramakrishna didn't simply pray to Kali, the Divine Mother, for financial aid.
That's a good point. It seems like a simple solution.
He even suggested this to Ramakrishna, who then instructed him to go to the Kali temple and pray for a boon himself. But here's the twist. 3 times Narendranath went to the temple, and each time he forgot to ask for money.
What, he just forgot? That's almost unbelievable.
It seems like a humorous anecdote, but there's a deeper significance here. It speaks to Ramakrishna's subtle way of guiding Narendranath towards renunciation, towards a deeper understanding of the Godhead that transcends material desires.
I see. It's about shifting his focus from worldly needs to a higher purpose.
Exactly, and while Narendranath initially resisted this idea, given his family's struggles, his understanding of the divine was evolving. He was beginning to grasp the concept of Kali as a symbol of the universe, encompassing creation and destruction, love and terror, life and death.
So he was moving from a simplistic view of the divine to a more nuanced understanding.
Precisely. It was a shift from a purely intellectual understanding of religion to a more experiential one, fueled by devotion and surrender.
And this shift was directly influenced by Ramakrishna's teachings, right? He was re-educating Narendranath in the true essence of Hinduism, moving away from dogma and ritual.
Yes, Ramakrishna stressed the divinity of the soul, the harmony of religions, and the path to perfection. These core teachings would later become the foundation of what Narendranath as Swami Vivekananda would share with the world.
It seems like he saw Ramakrishna as the embodiment of those teachings, not just someone preaching them, but living them. And it sounds like the feeling was mutual. Ramakrishna had quite a way of describing Narendranath, didn't he?
He absolutely adored him. He would often talk about Narendranath with such affection. He called him a 1,000-petaled lotus amongst his devotees and a huge water barrel capable of holding vast knowledge and experience.
Those are beautiful descriptions.
He even compared him to a male pigeon that breaks free when held, signifying Narendranath's inherent freedom and independent spirit. It paints a picture of his dynamic energy, sharp intellect, emotional depth, and even his occasional aloofness.
He certainly wasn't a simple character, but that complexity is part of what makes him so fascinating. So as Ramakrishna's illness progressed, did this affect Narendranath's spiritual practice?
His practice intensified as he witnessed his guru's suffering. He longed for God realization, pushing himself to the limits of his meditation. The biography even mentions instances where he displayed spiritual powers almost accidentally.
Wow, so he was really diving deep into his practice. Did Ramakrishna encourage this intensity?
Surprisingly, he actually guided Narendranath away from constantly seeking samadhi. That state of blissful union with the divine Ramakrishna had a different vision for him.
What did he envision for Narendranath?
He directed him toward a higher state, one that involved seeing God in all beings, a path of active engagement with the world of service and compassion. It wasn't just about personal liberation, it was about sharing that realization with others, uplifting humanity.
That's a crucial shift. It lays the groundwork for Narendranath's future work, which wasn't just about personal enlightenment, but service to others. And this all leads us to a poignant moment. Ramakrishna on his deathbed, transferring his spiritual power to Narendranath.
Imagine the weight of that responsibility, the immense task laid upon his shoulders. It's a powerful scene in the biography, full of emotion and a sense of destiny unfolding.
It's like passing the torch, entrusting Narendranath with the mission to carry these teachings forward. This transmission of power marks the beginning of a new chapter 1 that will see Narendranath transform into Swami Vivekananda, the spiritual leader who captivated the world. And that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive. We'll explore Ramakrishna's final days, the emotional impact on his disciples, and the incredible legacy that shaped Vivekananda's path. Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive into the life of Swami Vivekananda. Last time we left off with this powerful image of Ramakrishna on his deathbed, transferring his spiritual power to Narendranath. It felt like witnessing the passing of a torch and trusting him to carry those potent teachings into the world. But of course, this was also a time of immense sorrow, as Ramakrishna's health was declining.
It's remarkable how even amidst intense suffering, he continued guiding his disciples. Those final days really reveal the depths of his spiritual realization.
The biography mentions how he was able to detach himself from the physical pain, finding a sense of peace and even joy. It's almost beyond comprehension, isn't it, to transcend suffering to such an extent?
There's this incredible story where a visiting scholar suggests that Ramakrishna could heal himself, simply by concentrating his mind on his throat. But Ramakrishna refuses, stating that he could never withdraw his mind from God, even for a moment. Talk about unwavering commitment.
That's a profound statement, and it makes me think about our unattachments and how difficult it can be to truly let go, even when faced with suffering. Did Narendranath witness any other moments that revealed this level of surrender?
He did. There's another touching anecdote where Narendranath, seeing his guru in pain, begs him to ask the Divine Mother Kali for healing.
So did Ramakrishna give in and pray for his own recovery?
He reluctantly agrees to speak to Kali about it, but when he does, he's met with a profound message. The Divine Mother asks him, "Why are you not eating enough through all these mouths?" referring to his disciples.
That gives me chills. It's as if Ramakrishna's individual suffering became insignificant compared to the needs of his devotees.
Exactly. He was so humbled by this, realizing that his personal pain paled in comparison to his responsibility to those who relied on him for spiritual nourishment. This experience deeply impacted Narendranath, who was witnessing firsthand the Vedantic ideal of oneness rising above individual pain to experience the interconnectedness of all beings.
I imagine it was an incredibly powerful learning experience to witness that level of surrender and spiritual mastery. But did Narendranath always accept Ramakrishna's teachings without question?
Even with such a profound connection, Narendranath still wrestled with doubt. Remember, he always challenged conventional thinking. And now, as Ramakrishna neared death, Narendranath began to question whether his guru was truly a divine incarnation.
That's a bold thought, especially considering their close relationship. It speaks volumes about Narendranath's commitment to truth-seeking, to not blindly accepting anything on faith alone. But how do we understand the concept of divine incarnation within the Hindu tradition for listeners who might not be familiar? Could you shed some light on that?
Certainly, Vedanta, a core philosophy within Hinduism, teaches that every soul is essentially divine. From an absolute perspective, all beings are one with the divine. But in the relative world of form and experience, there's a distinction. A divine incarnation is someone in whom divine qualities are fully manifest, someone who embodies the highest spiritual realization and acts as a conduit for divine power.
So it's not just about having the potential for divinity, but about living and expressing that divinity fully, right?
Precisely, while an ordinary person might have glimpses of their divine nature, a divine incarnation embodies that potential in its fullness. They are a living example, a beacon of spiritual realization.
It's almost like they're here to remind us of our own potential, of what's possible for humanity.
Yes, and unlike an ordinary person, a divine incarnation is fully aware of their divine nature and mission from birth. Their birth isn't bound by karma, that cycle of cause and effect that governs ordinary lives. It's a deliberate act, a descent of the divine into human form for the benefit of humanity.
So they're not seeking personal liberation, but guiding others towards it. That makes me think of Ramakrishna dedicating his life to awakening his disciples, even in his final moments. But going back to Narendranath's doubts, how did he reconcile these questions about Ramakrishna's true nature?
He decided that he would only accept Ramakrishna's divinity if the Guru himself declared it, especially now as he neared death. It was like a final test. And incredibly, just 2 days before his passing, Ramakrishna addressed Narendranath's unspoken question lying on his deathbed. He says, "He who in the past was born as Rama, I am Krishna, is now living in this very body as Ramakrishna."
Those words must have resonated deeply with Narendranath, confirming his deepest intuition and solidifying Ramakrishna's place in the lineage of great spiritual masters. It also speaks to the continuity of spiritual wisdom flowing through the ages, embodying itself anew in each era.
Exactly, for Narendranath, this was a pivotal moment. But as Ramakrishna's death approached, his disciples gathered, absorbing every last word of wisdom. The atmosphere must have been incredibly charged.
The biography mentions that Narendranath and the other young disciples were given the responsibility of caring for Ramakrishna. What a profound and intimate experience that must have been. Can you describe those final days?
On August 16, 1886, Ramakrishna takes his final breath, uttering Kali's name 3 times before entering Mahasamadhi. That final absorption in the divine, imagine the profound grief the disciples must have felt they had lost, not just their guru, their teacher, but their spiritual anchor, their guiding light.
There's something so powerful about the guru-disciple relationship. It transcends the boundaries of ordinary relationships. It's a soul connection, and it sounds like even death couldn't sever that bond.
You're right. The biography shares a touching story where Ramakrishna's wife, known as the Holy Mother, is putting on the signs of widowhood, and she hears his voice saying, "I am not dead. I have just gone from one room to another."
That sends shivers down my spine. It speaks to the continuity of consciousness.
Yeah.
The idea that death is not the end, but a transition.
Exactly. And just a week later, Narendranath has his own experience confirming this. He's walking in the garden with a fellow disciple when they both see a luminous figure, Ramakrishna, appearing in his radiant spiritual form.
It's almost as if Ramakrishna was reassuring his disciples, reminding them that his presence continued even beyond the physical realm.
Absolutely. This experience had a profound impact on Narendranath, solidifying his faith and strengthening his resolve to carry forward his guru's legacy. And this brings us to the end of another chapter in this incredible story. In part 3, we'll explore how Narendranath, fueled by Ramakrishna's teachings and empowered by a spiritual transmission, steps into his role as a spiritual leader and eventually becomes the world-renowned Swami Vivekananda. Stay with us.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the life of Swami Vivekananda. We've been through so much together, his doubts, his struggles, that profound connection with his guru, Sri Ramakrishna. And now we kind of enter a new phase where Narendranath is grappling with Ramakrishna's passing and also simultaneously stepping into his own role as a spiritual leader.
It's a period marked by immense grief, but also a really powerful sense of purpose. The biography describes the sense of desolation among the disciples, but also this unwavering commitment to preserving Ramakrishna's teachings.
So how did they move forward after such a significant loss? Did they try to maintain the same structures and practices they had under Ramakrishna's guidance?
They formed a brotherhood, establishing a monastery at Baranagar, just north of Calcutta. It became their spiritual sanctuary, a place to practice, to study, and to support each other as they navigated this new reality. But it wasn't always easy, Narendranath. You'll recall, always challenged conventional thinking, and now, as kind of the de facto leader of this group, his unconventional approach sometimes created friction.
Oh, that's interesting. You'd think they'd all be on the same page after, years of training together. What caused these disagreements?
Mm-hmm. He questioned blind faith, encouraging the others to test their beliefs, to move beyond just emotionalism, and to develop a more robust spirituality grounded in experience and reason. He even poked fun at the older disciples who got caught up in these dramatic displays of ecstasy, calling it sentimental nonsense.
It sounds like he was really pushing everyone to go deeper, to truly embody Ramakrishna's teachings, rather than just imitate his outward behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me think about how true transformation requires us to really internalize the teachings and make them our own, not just follow blindly.
Exactly. And Narendranath's own struggles with doubt now informed his leadership. He knew firsthand the importance of grappling with tough questions, of not shying away from intellectual inquiry. His approach, though sometimes abrasive, ultimately shaped a generation of strong, independent-minded spiritual seekers who in turn carried Ramakrishna's message forward in their own unique ways.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that true mentorship isn't about creating clones, but empowering individuals to find their own paths. So while they were deepening their spiritual practice at the monastery, what was Narendranath doing?
Remember, he was always drawn to knowledge from diverse sources, now free from the constraints of his formal education. He embarked on a series of journeys across India.
So we have this young monk traversing this vast landscape, immersing himself in different cultures. It's almost like a hero's journey when you say, what kind of impact did these travels have on him?
It was a profound experience. He encountered saints and scholars from various traditions, getting a first-hand look at the state of India, the poverty, the social inequalities, the remnants of colonialism. This exposure deeply affected him. He saw immense suffering, but also the resilience of the people, their deep-rooted spirituality. It was during this time that he started formulating his vision of revitalized India, one that drew strength from its spiritual heritage while embracing progress and social reform.
It sounds like his travels really sparked a social conscience within him. Did he encounter anything that challenged his views on traditional religion?
His travels also exposed him to the limitations of religious structures. He encountered hypocrisy, corruption, and overemphasis on outward practices at the expense of inner transformation. This fueled his determination to present Hinduism in a way that was relevant to the modern world, stripped of superstition and accessible to all.
It's a bold vision, especially considering the times. It sounds like he was laying the groundwork for what would become his life's mission.
Yes, he returned to his brother disciples with a wealth of experience and this burning desire to take Ramakrishna's teachings beyond the confines of the monastery. It was clear he was no longer just a disciple, but a leader ready to share this message with the world. And then in 1893, a pivotal moment arrived. Narendranath, now known as Swami Vivekananda, received an invitation to attend the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago.
Wow, that's incredible. A young monk from India traveling to America to speak about Hinduism on a global stage. What a bold move. What was the response like?
It was electrifying. His powerful words, his message of universal spirituality, and the oneness of all religions captivated the audience. He became an overnight sensation, heralded as a voice of wisdom from the East. This marked the beginning of his mission to bridge the gap between East and West, introducing the world to the profound depths of Vedanta and the timeless teachings of his guru, Sri Ramakrishna.
It's amazing how his message resonated with a Western audience. How did he manage to connect with people from such a different cultural background?
He was masterful at tailoring his message. He drew parallels between Eastern philosophy and Western thought, presenting Hinduism not as this rigid dogma, but as a science of spirituality. He emphasized practical techniques like meditation and yoga that could be embraced by people of all faiths. His approach sparked a wave of interest in Eastern spirituality that continues to this day.
Yeah, it's remarkable to think about the lasting impact he's had. It's not just about the popularity of yoga and meditation, but about opening up a dialogue between different spiritual traditions. So what happened after his time in America? Did he return to India?
He did, and Vivekananda's impact went far beyond lectures and speeches. He established Vedanta societies across America and Europe, creating a lasting infrastructure for the dissemination of his teachings upon his return to India. He founded the Ramakrishna Mission, a monastic order dedicated to serving humanity.
So he wasn't just about spreading spiritual knowledge, but really putting it into action.
Exactly. The Ramakrishna Mission, still active today, embodies Vivekananda's vision of combining spiritual practice with social action, putting Ramakrishna's teachings into practice in the real world through education, healthcare, and spiritual guidance.
Wow, it's incredible how this intense period of training under Ramakrishna laid the foundation for such a far-reaching impact. Vivekananda's life story truly is a testament to the power of mentorship, the transformative potential of deep spiritual connection, and the enduring legacy of a guru's love and guidance.
It's a story that speaks to the potential within each of us. We all have the capacity for profound transformation and the ability to make a difference in the world.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the life of Swami Vivekananda, what do you hope listeners take away from his journey?
I hope it's a reminder that we can all seek guidance and find mentors who can help us navigate our own journeys of transformation. And maybe it's also an invitation to explore the depths of our own spiritual heritage, to connect with the wisdom traditions that resonate with our own souls.
Whatever the takeaway, I hope this deep dive has sparked a sense of wonder and inspired you to continue exploring these themes in your own life. Remember, the journey of self-discovery is ongoing. Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep the flame of knowledge burning bright.
I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.